Mary Upton because we love to have the cousins come. And for 20 years, we've been hosting the cousins. And we used to go to big restaurants, but now it's Kimball's because people like Kimball's with ice cream. And I remember at the Admiral's, we have a wonderful picture with a big chocolate ice cream cone and left Kimball's and some wonderful photos of all of the cousin visits. But because this is Memorial Day, and it's also more than just a Memorial Day, it's the 70th anniversary of D-Day. And I got to thinking that it's pretty important because this young man, Sanderson Sloan, graduate of Dartmouth, moved here in the mid-30s, 35, from Newton. And his dad bought this farmhouse down below, which is still owned by the Cathedral. And he brought his 4 children, 3 boys and a daughter, here. The last son and daughter just died not too long ago. And they're all buried here on the grounds at the cemetery. And I hope to take a tour, if anybody wants to go afterwards, to see some parts of the cathedral. But Sanderson wanted to go in, as all young men did, and he got became an officer candidate, became a lieutenant, and was the pilot of a B-17 bomber. Flew 15 missions over Germany, to Kilburton, England, over the canal. And it's interesting, if you talk to some of these old pilots, at the end of the war, in late 44, or during the D-Day, they were leaving 1,000 B-17 bombers a day were leaving England, going over certain targets, bombing out plants and aircraft companies and so forth. And he was shot down after all these missions. There's 10 guys in a plane, and all but one was a right rear gunner, survived. I'm not sure how he survived, but he did survive the crash, and he just died and lived in the Midwest most of his life, participated here. Sanderson married Peggy, who was a summer resident across the way. Peggy eventually left her cottage to us, and we rent it now. Sanderson B-17 bomber was, on the picture of the side, is Peg of My Heart, and that was his plane he flew. And when he left the service, he was married, didn't know his wife was pregnant, but he walked out here on the grounds and he said to his dad, when I come home, I want to build a house for Peggy and I right here. And as you walk down the sanctuary, you'll see a rock with a plaque on it, and that was the site that he had chosen for his home. One of his brothers flew a B-25 bomber, successfully flew and came back here and lived in the area, as did his other brother and sister. So Sanderson was the one son that was lost. He was missing in February of 1944. As we all know, D-Day was June 6th of 1944. So had he lived 3 or 4 more months, he might have come home, but it was shot down just before D-Day. His father waited a year before they did anything because he was missing in action. They finally got official word a year later that he was actually killed. And so the father had a small service here and built the cathedral. And the cathedral this year is 69 years old. So D-Day is 70-year anniversary, and this place was formed a year later, 69. Next year will be the 70th anniversary here. People have come here from all over the world for all these years. It's a special place for Dory and I. We were married here 20 years ago, so we love the cathedral, and I serve on the board and have for many years. We're going to talk about grandfathers and great-grandfathers today, and I would like to give you the order. I would ask Jim to start it off in a minute. Jim can come up and talk about his grandfather and his father, Elton. And then Steve will follow, talk about Ray Wood's military service. And then Eric will come up and talk about Steve Allen's military service. And then we'll wind up with Sam and Tyler Stearns, because Dana's on his 50th birthday someplace, nobody knows where they are. But we were in charge of the bright young boys who Dana passed the buck. And as I recall, when we were at San Juan last year, Dana wasn't able to, I think he was working in the emergency room, but Sam came up and related some good stories about Grandpa Stearns, as I recall, in the cottage. But they will represent Fred and Fred's father. So I would just like to open with a couple of comments. I want to read some remarks of a sergeant major who spent 23 years in the Army. I found out later he was most of the time with the CIA. He was a pretty amazing guy once I got to know him, but somebody asked him to come here and speak last week at a memorial service, and so I got to know him, and he sent me his talk because I thought it was so outstanding. So let me just read a couple of things that give a little bit of history of how serious the war was. Monday, May 24th, a day of the week selected for convenience rather than tradition, America observed Memorial Day for the 146th time. In small towns and big cities alike, we attended parades, participated in ceremonies, and respectfully listened and watched as buglers and firing details saluted our war dead. How appropriate it was for us to come together on Friday, May 30th, on Memorial Day at this place, the Cathedral, to pay our respects and honor the memories of those who have given their lives. We celebrate Memorial Day here on the 30th, which is the traditional Memorial Day. Most of the community celebrate it on a Monday, so they have a long weekend. Sadly, for young Americans, Memorial Day has come to hold no more of a meaning than a day off from work or school, a long weekend to enjoy whatever they choose to do, often without a thought or appreciation of the sacrifice of so many. But for many Americans, especially veterans of military service and their families, many of whom bear the physical and emotional scars of war, Memorial Day is a somber day of reflection, filled with thoughts of those lost and of the blessings of freedom. As we take pause from our busy lives on this and every Memorial Day, it is important to always remember that Memorial Day isn't for us, it is for them. Memorial Day is a day for the dead. Much has been written about war, the nations who engage in war, and the soldiers who fight and die in those wars. Some are subjective recollections, first-hand accounts of those who witnessed extraordinary acts of personal courage and sacrifice, and those who endured the most horrific and unforgettable sights, sounds, and smells of battle. Others write objectively and somehow try to calculate the cost of war and treasure expended and blood spilled, a truly impossible task. He goes on to say that we'll never know, because just maybe that young medic that was killed rendering the aid to a fallen soldier on D-Day, or a Marine on the beach in the Pacific theater of World War II, had the cure for cancer in his head, what was taken from us before he could unlock those secrets and share them for good of humanity. He put together the statistics of war, and I'm going to just talk about World War I and World War II. He spoke of Korea, Vietnam, and many other conflicts. World War I, the Great War, the war to end all wars, a 2-year engagement for America. Those who served were 4,734,991 people. Killed were 116,516. Wounded, 204,002. Missing in action, there are very conflicting official estimates. World War II, the Righteous War, a 4-year engagement for America. 16,112,566 served. 405,399 died. 670,846 were wounded. Missing in action, 73,624. In 1886, a well-known and controversial author, an Englishman by the name of John Stuart Mills, shared his thought on war. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of morale and patriotic feelings, that which believes nothing is worth war, is much worse. A man who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature who can never be free. unless made and kept so by the exertion of men better than himself. Today, as we pay tribute to those who sacrificed so much for freedom for each of us, we must find it in our hearts to live our lives in ways worthy of that sacrifice and do all we can to realize our own God-given potential. It is the duty of every veteran and the responsibility of every good citizen to respectfully remind those who need reminding, not only the cost of war, but the value of freedom, now and always. I was taken by hearing the numbers, which you don't usually hear from one war to the other. It was quite moving. So, let's get into most of our relatives, thank God,